Welcome to session number 3 of the 23rd Annual Northwest Interlibrary Loan and Research Sharing Conference. Today is September 21st, 2023. This session is titled Accessibility/Print Disabilities and will be presented by Erika McNeil, Stan Huzarewicz. I'm very sorry if I mispronounced, I forgot to ask you. Jaleesa Horton. My name is Katie Wallace and I'm the convener of this session. This session is being recorded with permission from the presenters. Because they retain the copyright. The information they are presenting, they may choose to request its removal from public viewing in the future by written request to NWILL. However, at this time, it is planned that the recordings will be made available once captions have been added. Attendees will be notified when recordings are available. To turn live captioning on, click on the CC link at the bottom of your screen and select Show Subtitle. If you have a question during the session, please use the Q&A function in Whova, and I will pose these questions to the presenters at the end of their presentation. We will not be monitoring chat for questions. When the presentation ends, please complete the post-session survey in Whova located on the conference homepage, and I will paste it in the session chat at that time. NWILL and presenters appreciate and use your feedback. On that note, I will turn it over to our presenters.
Thanks, Katie. All right, I'm going to attempt to share my screen. And I hope that's coming through with the presentation. So yeah, hello and welcome to our presentation. Outside the Box, bringing disparate systems together to serve patrons with print disabilities. Actually, let me, I do need to, if I can do this, turn off my video. Just a moment. Actually, it doesn't want to let me turn off my video. All right, so I guess my video's on. Sorry about that. Okay. Oh, thank you. Whoever turned me off. Thank you. That's great. Okay, so now I just have to minimize this again. Excuse me. I'm so sorry. All right. All right, so my name is Erika McNeil, and I'm head of Interlibrary Services at the University of Connecticut. And with me is, go ahead, Stan, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm Stan Huzarewicz, and Erika's my boss. I am the Interlibrary Services Librarian. I oversee the lending part of the operation as well as the document delivery or scan on demand operation.
Thanks. So a bit about UConn. The University of Connecticut was founded in 1881 and is both a land and sea grant institution. It's an R1 institution with a main campus and 4 regional campuses across the state. We have 14 schools and colleges, 123 majors, 95 research and professional practice fields of study, and 6 professional degree programs. There are over 32,000 students, and faculty and staff number over 5,000. So we look at the UConn libraries. On the store's main campus, we have the main Homer Babbage Library, the Pharmacy Library, the Music and Dramatic Arts Library, as well as archives and special collections. Regionally, we have the Avery Point Campus Library on the shore, the Hartford Campus Library, which is located inside the Hartford Public Library, the Waterbury Campus Library, which is out toward the west, and Stamford Campus Library, which is down toward New York City in Fairfield County. So here's the most recent picture of us. Currently, our library has 94 staff members. We have about 3 million physical items and license over 1 million ebooks and over 127,000 e-journals. The unit we work in is Interlibrary Services, which is centralized across all campuses. So we provide ILLIAD interlibrary loan borrowing and lending, document delivery scan on demand, paging through Alma fulfillment, and accessibility scanning. We currently have over 7,000 registered ILLIAD users. For systems, we use ILLIAD, Exlibris Alma, Rapid ILL, and IDS Project Logic. We're 4 full-time staff and approximately 14 student employees who support these services. And in terms of scanners, we have 3 Book Eye scanners to provide scanning services. So historically, our unit has been providing accessibility scanning for years. Twice yearly, staff from the UConn Center for Students with Disabilities would email us detailed information about students who are registered with them so that we would know which students qualified. And this meant that patron-sensitive data was traveling by email. The service wasn't marketed at the library and only visible via the CSD office. The service was almost completely mediated. Now, we felt there was probably a better way to do this, and we thought about ways that we could improve our workflows and methods. The goal was to improve patron privacy so that patron-sensitive data wouldn't need to travel via email, to increase awareness of the service so that it wasn't only marketed through the CSD office, to utilize IDS project logic to unmediate many of our steps, to take advantage of the HathiTrust downloads and accessibility service, and provide information on the service to user groups beyond students. So we had a series of meetings with UConn's general counsel, who actually is pretty awesome, and we've really established a good relationship with them, as well as the ADA manager, where we learned a lot of things. So for example, one idea we originally had was simply to have a box on the loan form where all patrons could just self-attest to needing a scan, and it wouldn't require them to register with the CSD. Now, we learned this presented a lot of complications to the university. We learned about legal implications of a student putting the university on notice, as it were, that they had a disability when they may not have notified the university in any other way. So this was problematic in terms of potential liability, but also in terms of not being able to provide the students the full suite of support that might be available to them. We later learned that as we implemented the service, that HathiTrust also requires that the student be registered in order for us to provide downloads. We also learned that the university is required to refer faculty and staff to specific staff members in the ADA office to arrange for accommodations. So it was pretty kind of eye-opening and interesting to learn these things about the university. So after the investigation and all these conversations we had, we decided to make some tweaks to our plan. So we did have to rein back a bit. We could still make some improvements, and our new workflows could still provide some benefits. So one big change that we made was to user privacy. The CSD created a SharePoint spreadsheet of registered students, and they gave access to the ILS staff. So what this meant was that student information didn't need to travel via email. It also remained current. Another change was to incorporate the use of HathiTrust full text downloads, which will decrease the number of scans of print books we'll need to do. IDS project staff has created a server add-on that searches HathiTrust for records and imports the link to the record into ILLiad. Now, this will reduce the number of volumes that will need to be scanned, and it will decrease mediation, as staff no longer need to search HathiTrust. We raise the visibility of our service by creating a new FAQ that provides information and instruction. We do provide that checkbox on the ILLiad loan form that lets patrons self-identify. However, we verify these patrons with the shared spreadsheet. We now provide information to faculty and staff user groups on how to access the service. So this is a screenshot of what the patron sees when they use the ILLiad book form. The checkbox reads, "I'm a student who has an alt media accommodation with the CSD." Having this checkbox here, we also raises the visibility of the service, puts it right at the point of requesting. This is just a screenshot of our FAQ that we created. This is also linked from our main Interlibrary Services webpage and open to any of you who would be interested in looking at it. So I want to talk a little bit about our workflow and what we designed with IDS Logic. So if we look at the staff side, what we did was we designed workflows for a variety of scenarios. The first one is the workflow for first-time users. If the box is checked and the patron is a first-time user, so someone who hasn't yet requested accessibility scanning, IDS Logic routes that request to what we've created, a new request for OCR queue. ILS staff check the spreadsheet that CSD shared with us. If the student is registered, we add OCR to the patron's authorized users field in ILLiad, so that we'll know in the future that they are registered. And we move the request to the awaiting OCR processing queue. If the student isn't registered, we send them a notification that we created in ILLiad. We send them that notification indicating how to register with the CSD, and we request the title as a print item. So the next scenario is if the box is checked and the patron is a returning user. So this is someone who has come to us before, they've been cleared, and they have OCR in their authorized user field in their ILLiad record. So what IDS Logic does is it routes this request to the new request for OCR queue for processing. So they're all set, all clear, ready to go. We also realized that we had to have an exception workflow because we thought, what if the box isn't checked, but the patron is a returning and approved user? So what we decided to do was to assume that the patron forgot to select the box, or maybe thought that they didn't need to subsequently check it, and Logic routes these to the new request for OCR queue. So here are just a few screenshots of examples of what the OCR code looks like in the patron's record and some of the rules we've created. And we are happy to share these. If you would like to send me an email, I can connect you with our examples because I know they're probably hard to read on the screen. And at this point, I'm going to pass this over to Stan.
Members of Hathi Trust can request access to full-text PDF for patrons with print disabilities. With a collection of over 18 million books and journals, this service can greatly reduce the need to borrow and digitize material. UConn had been a member of Hathi Trust since about 2011 or 2012, but it was only recently that we began utilizing this service. I know that in the past, when I would see the record, the OCLC record, the holding for an internet resource, very often the only one that I'd see would be for Hathi Trust. So it's awfully nice to finally have access to these items. Okay, the next slide. So Mark Sullivan at IDS recently developed an add-on that imports the URLs of books that are available in Hathi Trust into the ILLiad request. I can access the full text by logging in as an accessible text request service provider. I download the PDF and deliver it via document delivery in ILLiad. The PDF includes Hathi Trust's statement about the item's copyright status. And this is a part of our agreement with them, is that we have to keep that in place. So basically, it's pretty straightforward download. If the PDF is too large, we can try reducing it or sending it outside of ILLiad. And if a PDF isn't available in Hathi Trust and we don't own a copy, we can request it from another library. Okay, next slide. Okay, this slide just covers the workflow for books that aren't in the UConn collection or available online. So our borrowing staff will forward the books to lending after we receive them in ILLiad. And we create a new request and route it to document delivery and process it as a standard scan on demand request. After scanning the item, I'll perform a quality check to verify that the scan is complete and readable using Adobe Read Out Loud. And then after I see that the patron has actually downloaded and viewed the PDF, I'll follow up with them regarding the quality of the scan before we return the print copy. Okay, this is just a flow chart of the steps I just covered. So as you can see, it's actually fairly simple and straightforward, the process. And this is just an overview of the project status. The volume at this point has been pretty minimal, but we do anticipate more volume, especially because we've had ongoing meetings with our Center for Students with Disabilities. So the service is kind of evolving. Okay, next slide. So we currently have 3 scanners, 1 Book i4 and 2 Book i5s. The 5 and the 4, or the 4 and 5 are the same, but the 5 does a better job with auto editing, or at least so it's what seems to be the case to me. So long as we make sure that this to scan all the pages, the Book i software usually does most of the work for us. Yesterday, one of our students spent about 45 minutes scanning a book that was 270 pages of basically plain text with just a few images that were sort of non-essential, like not scientific or anything like that. The PDF was 25 megabytes, which seems kind of big, but Iliad was able to deliver it automatically. I think most of the time she spent was probably sort of sitting there and just watching as the Book i scanner did the edits. And I guess that brings us to our questions, Erika.
So were we going to have the questions after both of the presentations?
Yes.
Or did you want to answer your?
Yeah.
Did you
Sorry,
want to answer
that
the
was
questions?
just part of the.
Yeah, it's a kind of an
It's part of our
autopilot there.
presentation. Okay. So if we want to pass it to Jaleesa now.
Okay.
Sorry, I could not find my unmute button.
Did you need help with something, or are you okay now? Oh, it looks like she accidentally left. Well, we could do some Q&A now and see if she comes back, if she had some. Oh, no, she's coming back. Oh,
In my
well,
script. Did it stop sharing?
it did stop sharing. Do you want me to share my screen?
I can see it now.
Okay.
Oh, yes, I can see it now too. There we go.
Sorry. Strange. This presentation will discuss multiple ways SMU Libraries has added accessibility measures to our interlibrary loan process, as well as tips to overcome some common accessibility obstacles. And so for a little bit of background, I was on the SMU Libraries Accessibility Committee. We work to increase not only the practical knowledge of accessibility for all staff, but also the way we think about accessibility within our units. We want it to be not just an afterthought, but a part of the planning that happens when we develop new services or pedagogies. Eventually, we did sunset that committee in lieu of unit-based accessibility measures, with the previous committee members being resources to help. So I started thinking about how my departments can improve access for all. When focusing on ILL, some of the most common ILL accessibility issues I noticed, and through both experience and the literature, kind of fell into 3 categories. Now, I'm not saying that these were all the categories or these are the only ones, but these are the few I decided to tackle first. These categories include use of the website and ILO web pages, copyright limitations, and handling the specialized needs of each individual who use ILO, like article formatting for assistive technologies or books in Braille. With category 1, we found our issues lied in both the library web pages and the ILO request forms. So SMU has 6 separate libraries with 3 separate ILO departments. That can cause a lot of inconsistency when you have your own web pages. It's especially grave when that information is either outdated or strangely formatted or even missing pertinent information like your contact information or having it misspelled. Not that anyone would ever do that, but you never know. In terms of our ILO request forms, they themselves were very simplistic when it comes to the requirements and what we were asking, in addition to there being no specified areas for adding accessibility needs. And so how can we fix this? Really simple, or could it be simple solutions or simple-ish? For me, I write like I talk. So unless you want the website to be a long-winded Southern girl, this is where your web team or other local resources like IT on campus can become your rescuers. We learned through their work on our pages and just some information, the least number of pages, the better, but also making sure to keep it short and sweet. Also making sure to add your contact information at the top. In addition to that, instead of bogging down your web pages with niche information of if this happens, do this, or if this happens, do that, use other resources like FAQs and link to this page. That way you can keep it short and simple to what they actually need, but then have extra information if they need that as well. It all makes the process of ILO, asking questions and getting answers so much easier. The last but most important part is updating your pages regularly. What regularly means for SMU might be different for others, but a periodic check for errors, broken link, or compliance to new accessibility standards will make all the work you originally did not for nothing. Now, moving on to category 2. It's one of the most ambiguous. We continually get questions about borrowing full resources electronically because of the needs for accessibility. However, ILO is bound by copyright. I don't know about you, but I don't want to be the reason my institution gets sued. So what does that mean in terms of accessibility? The previous presentation talked a lot about how ILO can work through that, but it can be so much information, and how will this work for your institution? One of the articles that has helped me kind of process this process of getting all the information is based out of the Association of Research Libraries. They had a white paper from 2019 that really helped me understand some of the legalities and loopholes intentionally set for accessibility at ILL that make things like HathiTrust work. I knew about the fair use doctrine, but learning about, the Chafee Amendment or the Marrakesh Treaty and how they change US copyright has been amazing to really understand the more in depth. And unfortunately, while I can't go super in depth here in the time that I have, I do recommend this white paper to kind of help understand a little bit more why these processes work. Now, how do we fix copyright? Your guess is as good as mine. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know all about the process. I don't know about all the soft services and features that are out there, but as we progress as a field and we have more developments like the Chafee Amendment or the Marrakesh Treaty, as well as expanded technology like HathiTrust or controlled digital lending, hopefully this process will become easier, and the information and knowledge of it, especially with conferences like this, can just be more expanded across the field. The third category that arose was specialized needs. We can easily think of those who are blind or have mobility issues, but there are so many reasons someone may need formatting that falls outside regular norms. This includes OCR for screen readers or JPEG files instead of a PDF or assistive technologies. But it also could include those with other learning disorders like dyslexia. If a PDF is in a hard to read font or just a scan, they may need a Word document so that they can adapt and change the font into a more dyslexic friendly font. There's also those with color blindness who have difficulty with tables and charts because of the chosen colors. There are so many reasons patrons may need different accommodation, but why do we always make them reach out to get those accommodations? To try and mediate some of these requests, because unfortunately we can't make our request forms so tailored that it asks 20 million questions. What SMU did was add specific questions and comment sections to our ILL request forms so that patrons can get what they need faster. We also list this as a resource on our ILO websites that I spoke about before, so that they can be prepared for these questions before they actually get here. In addition to this, having trained and experienced staff to look out for these types of patterns can really help increase these types of improvements and really add priceless value to this process. Lastly, connecting to your community, whether on a campus or in your area, in order to get advice, ask questions, or even mimic, can keep us from reinventing the wheel. Which leads me to my biggest point of all. Do not go through this process alone. As someone who is not blind or have visual impairments, I don't always know what they need. So ask. Connect with those who are experts in this and can at least point you in the right direction. For SMU on campus, we have both an Office of Student Support, which helps with the overall well-being of students, and a Disability Services Office. They handle this every day. They may even have resources or avenues outside of what ILL can do. And since they kind of already know those, hopefully that they have an even better chance of not being sued. For instance, our Disability Service Office has a process already set up to be able to get books from publishers and then turn them into Braille for students. And so with that option, if we can add an ILL to that, you never know what type of new avenues can be opened. SMU Libraries also has a student advisory board that meets quarterly to discuss topics just like this. Depending on the membership, they could answer someone from some of these questions from their direct perspective, getting straight to the root of the need. Find these resources and use them. If you're not on a campus, look in your community. Multiple states have organizations already working on these types of solutions. Use this expertise to expand your knowledge and your own services. Lastly, the Library of Congress has a national service as well. While we know they probably get a whole lot of questions every single day, it doesn't hurt to ask. What are they going to do? Say no? Not really in a librarian's nature. So overall, if you take anything from this presentation, it's to try. Try to find avenues to stop singling out those who are different by default. Work with your community to ask questions, find solutions, and implement what you can. We can't change everything, but there are always places for improvement. And let me tell you, the patrons will appreciate it and they will let you know. If anyone is interested in getting more information on how we went about this, feel free to reach out. Thank you.
All right, thank you both. Thank you, all of you. We have some questions. The first Q&A we have is, do you have options to make digital only items accessible for registered students with disabilities who have difficulty reading digital screens, printing an ebook, etc.?
I'm not sure who the question's directed at. I'm not quite sure I understand about printing the ebook.
Any of you can answer. Just says, so basically for students who have difficulty reading screens, would you ever print out an ebook is what it sounds like to me.
I don't believe we've ever had that question before from one of our patrons.
I agree. I think it would depend. I would also want to talk to our DAS office or our disability service office to see if they have any other alternative routes besides just printing the.
Okay, we use Adobe Acrobat to perform OCR on PDFs for accessibility. Is this the best way?
Dan, did you want to answer it from UConn's perspective?
Sure. So Adobe does have, like in the professional, in the edits, it does have the option to do a like a recognized text function. And I actually think if you just turn on the edit function in like in tools, I believe it is, it will actually just do a text recognition, perform that automatically. But there's definitely like a button that you'll see in there. For instance, that might be one that you see with the enhance PDF features in Adobe.
So I think the question is asking, is there anything besides, is Adobe Acrobat the best program to use? Is there a different program you would use? Or is Adobe Acrobat the main one?
That's the one we use for our documents.
Okay,
That's also what we use at SVU.
okay. Let's see what we have next. How reliable is the accessibility check in Acrobat?
I find it to work pretty well. So for instance, and for what I do, I end up using a read out loud to make sure it's readable, because some PDFs will be searchable, for instance, but they won't actually be readable. I have found that our scanners actually, when you scan something, at the very end, when you go to save it into our scans folder, a dialog box will pop up where you indicate what you're going to name it, but also it has an option for the format, and it just refers to it as searchable. And when I say searchable, I tend to think in terms of using the Control F, to find something.
Mhm.
But I have found some PDFs that will actually work. So it has a certain amount, I guess, of OCR, but it isn't always readable. So that's why I like to do the use Adobe Read Out Loud.
Okay, is the process you're describing for creating digital OCR versions of full books or for shorter things such as chapters? If chapters, why don't you OCR everything?
We do, by the way, when we scan something, everything is automatically saved with that, with that option in place. And, in interlibrary services, it's something that generally libraries will talk about trying, that ideally everything will be readable or machine readable.
Okay, how many students do you have assist per semester or year?
I don't, Jaleesa, do you want a chance to?
Can you repeat that?
Sure. How many students do you, not how many students do you have assist? How many students do you assist each semester? And it says semester or year. So how many students do you assist?
For us, we usually do, it depends on the year, especially, I would say at least a dozen. A lot of them are ones that have been referred to us from our disability services office. But a lot of times, if it's less students, it's the same students coming over and over, more needing assistance. So we will get to know them, but it's usually about 10 to 12 students a year.
Yeah, we only have a few. But, like I said, it wasn't really advertised as a service. The students through the CSD office already have a mechanism to get textbooks supplied. So I imagine since we're raising the profile of it, we might get more activity, but only during the academic semesters, since it really is geared for students. And our ADA manager said it's very unusual for him to get like an alt media accommodation. They tend to be other kinds of accommodations. So I would guess it's hard to assume, like when you don't know, you suddenly have to make a service and then you profile it. Like it's hard to anticipate what kind of activity you might get. But I expect that it'll still be on the lower side. Stan, do you have any thoughts about that?
I sure do. When we first started doing this in 2017, the patron that we worked the most with, who was really the one who got us to start using this service, a graduate student, she assured us that it would be a popular service. And for a little while there, we did get requests. But I think a couple of things happened, one of which is more things became available electronically, because at that time, what we were told was that ebooks were not always really friendly, were not machine readable. And I think it's just because they had other stuff in the file, maybe watermarks or something like that. But now they've really evolved a lot. And, a number of them allow you to download ebooks, say, as just PDFs like, DeGroyd or Wiley, whatever, as single PDFs that are already readable and everything. So I think it's improved a lot. So that may explain some of the decrease, but then also the fact that our Center for Students with Disabilities, I think actually is able to meet a lot of the needs over there.
Is there an OCR best practice with regard to scanning in black and white versus grayscale or color? Black and white gets a smaller file size, but sometimes leaves speckle. Grayscale/color, which obviously needs to be used for images, are larger and often have bleed through. I'm curious what others do as their standard.
Well, this is a very interesting thing, because within the world of interlibrary loan, we have, talked about the idea of 300 DPI, but when it comes to scanning whole books, it's not really practical. In addition to being a larger file, it's just our scanners are slower. Whereas at 200 DPI in black and white, it can scan it pretty quickly. And the text is good enough to be readable. Grayscale and color, it can actually do quickly if you can get away with reducing it to like 150 DPI and it'll still be a really good quality. But the problem there is just going to be the file size. So we usually reserve the grayscale for things where there are going to be images, grayscale and color, we'll reserve it for that. Or aside from books, if it's just a shorter document and we find that it doesn't look good in black and white, then we'll switch over to grayscale. But the black and white 200 DPI, sometimes it can be, in the past it wasn't very good, but I think our new scanners have better lenses or something.
We follow pretty much the same. We have a book i5, so.
Yeah. We have panels up too, by the way. That is because we try to darken it. I don't really know how much it helps, but it does seems like it's improved it.
Okay, have you seen a change in the kinds of needs that are being met?
I just want to mention one thing. I had always made the assumption that we were helping people with print disabilities, but then what I actually realized, what one patron who was doing this is kind of before our pilot, this current version of it. What I learned about her, she was coming to us pretty regularly, and I asked her about the quality one time, and she kind of explained something to me, and I went and it turns out this is somebody who's like a quadriplegic and can't physically handle books really. So she likes to use like a read out loud when she, and that allows her to do other things, work on other things as well. So I learned that it's, not just people with print disabilities. Yeah,
that's kind of the same level. A lot of times it's students who are coming back for the same type of request, but a lot of times it's a type of request that we know, but the reasoning behind it is different. And so that can make us look at the way that we do it a little different. And so I guess kind of, but not really.
Okay, what are the format options for those needing accessibility readers? Your example showed the option for alternate formats. I know of TIFF and PDF.
So we do have TIFF and PDF. Some assistive technology works best with JPEGs. Those are the ones that we use the most, but there are a couple others that work best with like Kurzweil or JAWS. It really just depends. But there are a couple others. I'm sorry, I can't think of them right off the top of my head, but there are a couple others that we do provide. If I can find that information, I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, thanks. How can ILL be better / more inclusive for the deaf? Are there any document options that can help?
That isn't something we've explored at UConn. We do have we do have instructions on how to request Braille, but in terms of, you know, services for the deaf, no, we haven't really talked about that yet. But that's a good question.
Can you repeat that question? Sorry.
Yes. Oops. How can ILL be better / more inclusive for the deaf? Are there any document options that can help?
That is a good question. That's one realm that we haven't unfortunately gone into with assistance, but I do hope in the future that becomes more of a thought for sure.
Okay, it looks like we have time for one more question. Have any of the presenters run into any problems or found solutions with OCRing non-Roman alphabet scripts in terms of OCR accuracy?
That's something I've never really had to deal with when it comes to accessibility, as we're talking about. However, we've had to do things like we've had to translate text for patrons. And there have been instances where we've had to get kind of creative like that, like using Google Lens, things like that to take advantage of online translation. But I don't think I've ever had to actually scan something in a different language, really. One thing or a different alphabet. I do notice though that with OCR, that feature, that you do have an option to pick the language, by the way, well, I'll say the language, because that's what it appears as. But I assume that includes different types of scripts.
Yes, that has not been something that's popped up for us.
All right, thank you to all of the presenters and to all of the attendees. Please fill out the post-session survey. I will post the link in the chat right now. It can also be found on the conference homepage. Additionally, if you have enjoyed this session and want to continue the conversation, you can continue to use the chat within the session or move to the community section of Whova, where you can use the chat boards or create a virtual meetup. Thank you very much, everybody. And the next session starts in 15 minutes.
Thanks, Katie.
Thank you.
Thank you.